Look into my eyes. No, deeper. Look past the fear you've been carrying, past the headlines that keep you awake at night, and into that quiet, fragile place in your chest where your soul actually resides. You feel it, don't you? That gentle, insistent tug, the one that whispers that the world is tilting, that the ground beneath us is shifting, and that we are standing on the precipice of a moment that will redefine everything we thought we knew about faith. We have spent so long waiting for a sign, searching for a thunderclap in the clouds, while the most profound transformation is happening right now in the silence of your own breath. I need you to stay with me for the next few minutes, not because I have all the answers, but because I have felt the same tremor in my spirit that you are feeling right now. If you click away, you might miss the very thing that turns your anxiety into an anchor. We are often told that the future is something to dread, a dark horizon approaching with haste. But what if it isn't? What if what is coming isn't an end, but a violent, beautiful stripping away of everything that keeps you from your purpose? I know you are tired. I know you are worn thin by the weight of trying to manage a world that feels completely out of your control. But you weren't meant to carry that. You were meant to be a vessel. Tonight we aren't talking about the news cycle. We are talking about the rhythm of your own heart syncing with the heartbeat of the divine. If you have ever felt like you were born for a time such as this, a time of testing, a time of refining, a time of choosing, then listen closely. This isn't just a video. It is an invitation to stop running, to drop your defenses, and to realize that you are exactly where you need to be, even if you are afraid. Let's walk through this doorway together. Because on the other side of this fear, there is a grace so profound that it will change the way you see every single breath you take from this moment forward. The weight of divine urgency is a concept that often gets lost in the chaotic machinery of our daily lives. We are conditioned to measure time in increments, seconds ticking toward deadlines, hours carved out for labor, and calendars mapped out for our personal agendas. We view time as a commodity to be spent or a resource to be managed, but rarely do we pause to consider that time is, in its most sacred essence, a vessel designed by the Creator to hold our spiritual growth. When we speak of urgency in a spiritual context, we are not talking about a frantic race against a ticking clock or the anxiety that comes from anticipating tomorrow's potential disasters. Instead, we are talking about a profound internal realization that our existence here is purposeful, intentional, and fleeting. To feel this urgency is to understand that the present moment is the only place where we can actually meet God. It is the only territory where we can offer our surrender and receive the transformative grace that makes us who we were always meant to be. Often, we live as if we have an infinite supply of later. We defer our acts of love, we postpone our repentance, and we delay the deep interior work of aligning our will with the divine because we assume the future is a guaranteed landscape we will eventually inhabit. This illusion of perpetual stability is what keeps us from waking up. But when that veil is lifted and we see our lives for what they truly are, a narrow window of opportunity to choose, to love, and to serve, the atmosphere changes. Every interaction becomes charged with significance. Every struggle becomes an arena for refinement. This urgency is not meant to paralyze you with the fear of a looming deadline or to make you look at the calendar with dread. Rather, it is a clarion call to stop sleepwalking through your own life. It is the invitation to finally strip away the trivial distractions, the endless digital noise, the petty grievances, and the pursuit of things that offer no lasting sustenance to the soul, and to focus your heart on the singular truth of your relationship with the eternal. When you begin to live with this sense of urgency, you stop being a passenger in your own existence. You start to recognize that you are not just waiting for something to happen in the world. You are being prepared to be a witness, a light, and an instrument of peace in a time that desperately requires both. Preparation, in this sense, is not about stockpiling provisions or fortifying walls. It is about fortifying the spirit. It is the practice of consistently turning inward to ensure that your internal compass is pointed true north, even when the world is spinning in chaos. If you believe that we are living through a season of transition, then you must accept that the most important work you can do is the work of internal alignment. It is about clearing out the clutter of the ego so that the spirit has room to move. It is the hard, quiet work of prayer when you would rather be distracted, and the quiet act of choosing kindness when you would rather respond with judgment. This is what it means to take the time we have been given and treat it as a sacred trust. You are being called to a higher level of awareness, one that transcends the temporal panic of the masses and anchors you in the steady, unchanging reality of your purpose. The urgency is simply the gentle, firm tap on your shoulder, reminding you that today, this specific, unfolding moment is the place where you must decide who you are going to be in the face of whatever the horizon holds. It is a gift that requires your full, undivided attention, and it is a responsibility that you are fully equipped to bear if you are willing to let go of the need to control the outcome and focus entirely on the sanctity of the process. The call to stillness is perhaps the most difficult invitation to accept in a world that equates movement with progress and noise with power. We are constantly besieged by the relentless demands of a digital culture that thrives on our distraction, ensuring that our minds remain fragmented, jumping from one anxiety to the next, from one breaking headline to the next manufactured crisis. This constant motion acts as a shroud, obscuring the still, small voice that speaks only when the internal static is dialed down. If you truly wish to navigate the complexities of what lies ahead, you must understand that the most profound spiritual armor you possess is your ability to intentionally descend into the silence. This is not merely about finding a quiet room or escaping the clamor of the city. It is about cultivating an interior silence that remains unshaken by the external winds of change. It is the practice of detaching your worth and your peace from the outcomes of the world. When the news cycles scream about instability and the culture surrounding you descends into a frenzy of judgment and fear, your capacity to be still becomes an act of radical defiance. It is a declaration that you have found a kingdom that is not of this world, a place where your identity is secured by the divine rather than defined by the volatile ebb and flow of human events. To enter this stillness is to confront yourself, which is why so many avoid it. In the silence, there is nowhere to hide from the truths we try to bury under busy schedules and endless scrolling. Yet it is precisely in this confrontation that the healing begins. When you stop running from your thoughts and your emotions, you begin to see them through the lens of grace. You realize that the noise you were feeding on was actually starving your spirit. By choosing stillness, you are choosing to prioritize your relationship with the Creator above the desperate need to stay informed, to stay relevant, or to stay in control. You are acknowledging that God is not found in the earthquake, the wind, or the fire, but in that profound, delicate whisper that only the attentive heart can hear. This stillness is not a passive state. It is an active, disciplined surrender. It requires you to lay down your need to have all the answers. Often we think we need to understand the mechanics of the future to be prepared for it. We want to map out every possibility and arm ourselves with strategies for every potential failure. But stillness teaches us that we were never meant to be the architects of our own salvation. When you are still, you allow the Creator to work through you without the interference of your own ego. You begin to develop a spiritual intuition that acts as a compass, guiding you through the fog of confusion. You start to recognize the difference between the voice of fear, which demands immediate reactive movement, and the voice of the Spirit, which invites you into steady, intentional obedience. In this space of stillness, you learn to observe the world without being absorbed by it. You learn to carry the sorrows of others without letting them shatter your own peace, and you learn to witness the unfolding of difficult times without surrendering your hope. It is a state of active waiting, not waiting for the world to stop its spinning, but waiting with a heart that is fully anchored in the truth. As you practice this, you will find that your presence begins to change those around you. People who are trapped in the frantic cycle of fear will be drawn to the calm you carry, not because you have a perfect explanation for the world's problems, but because you have found a source of peace that the world cannot provide and certainly cannot take away. This is the ultimate power, the ability to stand unmoved in the center of the storm, knowing that your strength is not your own, but a reflection of the one who holds the storm in his hands. Reframing the concept of the end requires a fundamental shift in perspective, moving away from the catastrophic lens that modern culture forces upon us and toward a spiritual understanding of transformation. We tend to view the conclusion of an era, a system, or even a personal season of life as a total loss, a destruction of the things we hold dear. However, the spiritual life is a continuous journey of dying to the old so that the new may be birthed. When we hear talk of what is coming, or when we feel the tension in the atmosphere, our natural instinct is to cling to the status quo, to fight for the preservation of our comfort, and to panic when we see the structures around us begin to fray. But if you look at the trajectory of history through a lens of divine purpose, you begin to see that these moments of turmoil are often the very instruments of purification. The end is not a termination, it is a redirection. It is the necessary stripping away of the illusions that have kept us tethered to a world that was never meant to be our permanent home. Consider the things you are most afraid of losing: your security, your status, the predictability of your routines, or the validation of your peers. These are the very things that often form a barrier between your soul and the direct, unmediated presence of the divine. When those structures are shaken, it is not because the universe is collapsing, it is because the scaffolding is being removed so that you can stand directly on the truth. The anxiety we feel is simply the resistance of the ego refusing to let go of its safety net. But true hope is not found in the stability of worldly systems. It is found in the unshakable reality of the eternal kingdom. When you reframe your understanding of these times, you stop viewing external chaos as an omen of despair and start seeing it as an invitation to deepen your interior life. If the world is shifting, it is because it is being purged of the vanity, the pride, and the apathy that have blinded humanity for generations. For the believer, this is a season of radical trust. It is a time to stop measuring your success by worldly standards and start measuring it by the depth of your surrender. If everything you thought you could lean on begins to falter, you are forced to lean solely on the grace of the Creator. This is not a tragedy. It is the ultimate liberation. It is the moment where you finally stop trying to engineer your own destiny and start allowing your life to become a testament to something greater. This reframing allows you to walk through the darkness with a lamp that the world cannot extinguish. While others are searching for answers in the news or scrambling for security in material things, you are anchoring your identity in a reality that precedes time and survives every temporal collapse. You begin to understand that you are not a victim of the changing times, but a participant in a profound shift that is clearing the way for a deeper revelation of light. The end of your comfort zone is the beginning of your true purpose. The end of your reliance on human wisdom is the beginning of divine guidance. When you accept this, the fear that once paralyzed you begins to transform into a calm, steady resolve. You are no longer watching the clock with dread. You are watching the horizon with expectation, knowing that whatever is being washed away was never your real treasure to begin with. The beauty of this process lies in its ability to reveal what is truly eternal, cutting through the noise and the temporary distractions to expose the heartbeat of the spirit. It is the transition from a life of survival to a life of significance, where every hardship is treated as a crucible, and every change is viewed as an opportunity for the soul to climb higher into the light of the divine. Radical surrender is the most difficult, yet most essential path for the human heart. We are taught from our earliest days to seize control, to build our own foundations, and to protect the territories we have carved out for ourselves. We view surrender as an act of weakness, a failure to defend our interests, or an admission of defeat. But in the spiritual life, surrender is the ultimate act of power, because it is the point where we cease our internal war against reality and align our wills with the author of our existence. To surrender is to acknowledge that the illusion of control was a weight you were never meant to carry, a heavy burden that has kept you from the light of true freedom. When you fully surrender, you are not giving up on your life. You are giving up on the ego's desperate need to play God. You are acknowledging that while you cannot see the grand design, you trust the architect. This is a profound shift that moves you away from the anxiety of the future and into the peace of the present. Imagine standing on a shore as the tide begins to shift. You can spend your energy trying to push the ocean back, exhausting yourself in a futile effort to command the waves, or you can step into the water and let the current carry you. Surrender is stepping into that current. It is letting go of the need for everything to look a certain way or for your life to follow a specific, comfortable, and predictable trajectory. The fear of surrender stems from the belief that if you let go of the steering wheel, you will crash. You assume that your lack of control will result in disaster. But surrender is not passive resignation. It is the active, deliberate act of handing the steering wheel over to a guide who knows the road better than you ever could. When you stop fighting, you begin to see that many of the obstacles you were desperately trying to navigate were actually distractions preventing you from your true calling. By stripping away your ego, you clear the space for your spirit to expand. You stop trying to force doors that were meant to remain closed, and you stop chasing goals that were never truly yours to begin with. In this state of total abandonment to the divine, you discover a new kind of strength. It is a quiet, steady resolve that is not shaken by the changing winds of the world. Because you have nothing left to lose, having already surrendered your pride, your fears, and your worldly attachments, you become invincible in a way the world cannot understand. You become a person who can move through difficulty with grace, not because you are unaffected by the pain, but because you are no longer defined by it. You are anchored in a reality that sits far above the chaotic surface of human events. This is the path of the soul that has finally understood the secret of existence, that our greatest accomplishments are not those we seize, but those we receive through obedience. When you stop reaching, you finally start receiving. You begin to notice the small, miraculous guidance that has been present all along, the subtle whispers of direction that you were too loud with your own ambition to hear. Surrender allows you to breathe, perhaps for the first time, because you are no longer hyperventilating over the state of your circumstances. You are breathing in the rhythm of a much deeper, much older promise. This is a transformation that requires you to be honest with yourself, to admit that your own wisdom has reached its limit and that you are ready for something more profound. It is the act of stepping off the cliff of your own ego and finding, to your astonishment, that the air beneath you is thick with the support of the divine. Living in the present eternity is perhaps the most radical shift one can make in a world defined by the frantic anxiety of the future and the heavy, regret-filled shadow of the past. Most of our suffering is self-inflicted, born from the habit of mentally inhabiting times that do not exist. We lose our peace by projecting our fears into the next hour, the next week, or the next year, treating hypothetical catastrophes as if they were current realities. When you choose to live in the present eternity, you are making the conscious decision to anchor your consciousness in the only location where God actually resides. Eternity is not a destination you reach after you pass from this world. It is a quality of life you step into whenever you fully inhabit the present moment with awareness, gratitude, and surrender. This practice requires you to stop treating your current circumstances as obstacles to your spiritual growth and start seeing them as the very materials you are meant to use. If you are constantly looking for a better time or a safer set of conditions, you will always be a ghost in your own life, haunting your future while neglecting the ground beneath your feet. To live in the present eternity is to realize that the challenges you face today are the exact tools needed for your refinement. Whether you are dealing with quiet boredom, intense pressure, or profound uncertainty, these are not interruptions to your purpose, they are the purpose. By fully engaging with the now, you transform mundane acts into sacred duties. You stop measuring your life by long-term outcomes and start measuring it by the integrity of your actions in the next 5 minutes. Consider the simplicity of a single breath. If you are fully present for it, you are connected to the source of life itself. But if your mind is racing to formulate a strategy for survival or spiraling into despair, you have severed that connection. Living in the present eternity means maintaining that connection regardless of what the external environment dictates. It is the ability to walk through a fire without needing to know exactly how or when the flame will be extinguished, because you are focused on the immediate task of remaining faithful, loving, and clear-headed. When you operate from this center, you stop being a victim of circumstance. You begin to understand that while you cannot control the unfolding of world events, you have absolute dominion over the quality of your own presence. This perspective naturally strips away the panic that characterizes modern life. When you know that you are held in the hand of the divine, the temporal nature of your surroundings becomes less terrifying. You realize that your true security is not based on financial stability, physical safety, or the preservation of the status quo, but on the enduring reality of your relationship with the eternal. This knowledge changes the way you interact with every person you meet. You stop seeing them as entities who might threaten or help you, and you start seeing them as souls navigating the same fragile, beautiful, and temporal journey. Your presence becomes a gift to them because you are not pulling them into your own anxieties or demands for security. Instead, you offer them a space of calm, a place where the frenetic noise of the world is silenced. By focusing on the now, you are essentially practicing the way you will live forever. You are learning to align your heart with the rhythm of the divine, which knows nothing of our artificial deadlines or manufactured crises. You are training yourself to see beauty in the brokenness, to find stillness in the roar, and to respond to hatred with the unwavering strength of grace. This is not about escaping reality. It is about embracing it so fully that you transcend the superficial layers that cause so much pain. You become a witness to the unfolding of a larger story, one that is not concerned with the temporary fluctuations of human power or wealth, but with the eternal expansion of love, truth, and transformation, making your daily life a reflection of that higher, unshakable truth that remains when all else fades away.